Order, those on my right.
Mr. Speaker, I direct my question to the Prime Minister. I refer the Prime Minister...
Order.
Mr. Speaker, I mean, my people get warned incessantly, so maybe we could have a bit of consistency. I refer the Prime Minister to the fact that the government has recently appointed failed Labor state leaders like Joan Kirner and John Bannon to taxpayer-funded positions. Can the Prime Minister give this House an assurance that his government will not be appointing the former Prime Minister, Mr. Bob Hawke, to any taxpayer-funded positions?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr.
Order.
Speaker.
The House will come to order.
Mr. Speaker,
The Prime Minister might just wait till the House comes to order. The Prime Minister. The Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think the government's always had a very reasonable view of these things, and it is true that Mrs. Kerner has been appointed to head up the body in which she's had a lifelong interest and considerable expertise, and that is in the area of education and training, and where she is one of the people who
Order. Those on my right might not respond either. The Prime Minister has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, when in One Nation the government put the proposal of the National Training Authority, it was the leadership of the then Premier Kerner in terms of training in the labour market that made that led that very great change, and had Victoria at the forefront of adopting a national system, and she has kept a perpetual interest in education and training as issues. Mr. Speaker, the government's appointed Mr. Bannon, a former Premier, to the board of the ABC. And it's something, and as a consequence, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the ABC board will be the better for it.
Order.
Can I also say, Mr. Speaker, during the government's current period of office, Mr. Warwick Smith, a former opposition member, has been appointed to the Ombudsman of Telecom, and a former Liberal Party Lord Mayor of Brisbane, Sally Ann Atkinson, has been made a Trade Commissioner in Paris, and I wouldn't have thought, Mr. Speaker, that in the doing of that, the opposition would have asked such a question. And as far as Mr. Hawke's concerned, Bob Hawke, he and Malcolm Fraser recently, at my behest, represented Australia at the constitutional arrangement election of Nelson Mandela in the course of the South African election. Now, Mr. Speaker, so I don't think there's any basis for the question other than to display the juvenile qualities that the opposition now seems intent upon presenting with great gusto at each question period, and maybe if the coalition was in office there wouldn't be a whole bevy of former leaders on its front bench and deputy leaders. There they sit, alone and palely loitering.
The Honourable Member for Oxley.